As you probably know, if you're watching this one, I didn't get to do one of these last week. A whole lot of things going on, but I do, before I get started on this, want to say, in case the person is watching this, and I hope you are, I had put up a GoFundMe last winter, or maybe it was a little bit further back than that, where I had well, it was actually over a year ago now, and I had stopped posting it recently because a part of me still feels like a bum and a loser for asking people for help with a medical bill. But I had all but forgotten about it, and I got this notification. The bill, by the way, did go into collections, and I was just doing, $10 here and there to keep them from suing me for garnishing my wages or something like that. I don't really know how these collection agencies operate. I was in an emergency room for all the 12 hours when I had COVID pneumonia, and that was not last winter, it was the winter before. And they had pretty much just sent me home without really doing much. They had given me some x-rays and a couple of other things, but I didn't expect to get a medical bill in the tens of thousands of dollars. Now, my insurance covered a great deal of it, and I tried to contest it with my insurance company. I was like, hey, I was only in there for 12 hours. There's no way it equals out to like 60 grand. I think it was all total, and they didn't want to contest it or work with me, and the hospital didn't want to work with me. I told the hospital I was willing to pay. I got stuck originally with 8 grand, and I told the hospital I wanted, I can pay you what I can, but, I don't have, and they refused to work with me at all. They said they would take a minimum monthly payment of $450, or they could send me over to collections. I finally got tired of writing letters and phone calls and all of that, and I let it kick over to collections. Even though the original amount of money I raised from the GoFundMe fairly quickly, which was something like $1,200, I figured if I gave that to them, that they might, be willing to at least absolve some of the debt and knock a percentage of it off, but they didn't. And after a certain period of time, like I said, I always felt guilty deep down inside for having to post a GoFundMe on these videos, and I know it's nothing more than a leftover holdover from growing up the way I grew up with. You grab life by the horns and take care of your problems, and just suck it up and tough it out, and all the other kind of things that I got hit with at a very young age that I pretty much carried into adulthood, even though some of that is absolute total bullshit. But I logged in on a whim about a week or two ago, and someone had donated over $220 to me, and they left it anonymous, so I won't say who you are on here, but I was really blown away by that. I wasn't expecting that, and the worst part about it was they had left it to me. They had donated that like over a month and a half ago, and I realized they probably had not gotten any thank you response from me because I hadn't seen it, and I did send them one. And but I just want to say, in case you're watching this, or I don't know exactly who you are, I didn't recognize the name or anything like that, but I really, really deeply appreciate that. And I did shout that out on social media in case you're there. I don't know, I don't know if you're reading this or not, but the only reason I'm bringing this up is because it would bother me that somebody would actually dig into their wallet and donate that much money to a GoFundMe, and then think that I never said thank you to them or appreciated that or acknowledged them in any kind of way. I'll post it back on these videos just in case. I'm still dealing with the collection agency, but as long as they don't fucking garnish my, not garnish, as long as they don't garnish my wages, I'll give them what I make from donations, or I'll do what I've been doing, sending them a little $10 a month here and there, and they can kiss my ass. 12 hours in an emergency room does not warrant a 60 grand hospital bill. I mean, I never even was admitted to the hospital. But now that I've said all that and got that all out of the way, I'll go on and dive into the topic at hand. But I do want to know, whoever you are out there, if you're watching this, or if you got my message, or whoever you are, I do appreciate you. I didn't just take that money and not care about you at all. I appreciate every single penny that's been given to me by anybody. Look, I know, as well as anybody else, it ain't easy out here right now. And, saw this news article where they're saying they're not going to cut interest rates. Those assholes keep dangling that in front of us, you know. We may cut interest rates at the Fed. We may not cut interest rates at the Feds, but now they're saying they're probably not going to cut them for a while. They're up there fucking us all over with greedflation, in my personal opinion. And people are suffering down here because of it. I just want to say, I know what it's like out here. Gas is high, cost of living's high, groceries are high, everything's high. So anybody who takes the time to give me anything, I appreciate that very, very much. I don't take it for granted. But as far as this channel is concerned, before I dive into the topic, I want to say I think the best information should be free. And that's why you'll never see me doing, smash that like button, hit that subscribe thing, and give me so much money a month for exclusive premium content, because I just don't believe in doing that, actually. I don't believe in trying to make a living off this. I started this channel because I was pissed off, you know. I think if I ever write a book about this whole entire thing, I'll call it, I Got Pissed Off. But seriously, you know, I appreciate anything that has been given, and but this channel is free, always will be. And I'm not going to make a career out of this. I wouldn't want to, actually. You know, I like doing this once a week as a volunteer. My own voluntary action, I guess you could say. I'm at a loss for words. I trip over them sometimes. One thing I've been noticing lately, well, I haven't just been noticing it lately. I've seen it on a regular, consistent basis. But there is a lady, I've talked about her channel on here before. I think it's still called Burn the Stigma, but maybe it's not called. Maybe now it's Burn the Stigma with her name, and I can't say it off the top of my head. I apologize. But she had recently put out a video where she was talking about when she's on TikTok. I think I'm not on TikTok, but she was talking about the multitudes and multitudes and multitudes of troll AA comments she gets all the time. To be honest, you're a stronger person than me. She is a much, much stronger person than I am. I don't think I could tolerate being bombarded by so many fucking AA assholes day in and day out like that. I think it would just start to really grate on my fucking nerves, because I'm the kind of person that would have to answer every single one of them, and I would have to probably be on TikTok 100 hours a week just to get to all of them. And that's not what I wanted to delve into, but there was something she was planning on doing here on YouTube. If you're a subscriber to her channel, you've probably seen her video, but she was talking about doing a video on every single one of these little nasty comments, as far as the type of the context of the attacks that she gets. And one thing I did notice in a lot of the attacks I get from pro-AA people on here, or AA defenders, or AA gurus, I don't necessarily want to refer to them as old-timers as much, since I've had several subscribers on here comment that say they walked away from AA after a couple of decades. 22-year people, 25-year people, 30-year people. And so when I say AA old-timers, I'm not talking about you guys. I'm talking about the fucking asshole gurus that run these that run these groups like they're little mutually exclusive clubhouses or whatever they are. And speaking of mutually exclusive, that is going to be the topic that I'm going to talk about today, because one thing I get from AA defenders the most is this type of double talk. I don't even know if they're aware they're doing it. I don't think I was aware of the contradictions that I would say when I was an AA member. I was just mindlessly repeating the horse shit that had been told to me over and over again. But they will say that you can believe anything you want in AA. You don't have to do anything you want in AA. You don't want in AA. That this is your program, up to you to work it any kind of way you want to. And then they'll turn around and say, I had to do everything they told me to do, or I was going to die. AA loves to do that. You're going to die. Hate to tell you, but I'm going to die one day, whether I'm in a cult religion or not. But when you have a statement like you can believe anything you want to believe and be an AA member, so it can't be a cult, and then you turn around and say you had to do exactly what they told you to do, or you were going to die, those are two mutually exclusive things that cannot possibly both be true at the same exact time. you cannot tell people, well, there's no requirement, in AA other than a desire to stop drinking, and then say half measures availed us nothing. You can't say that you can believe whatever you want to do in here, that you don't have to do anything in there, and say you must be rid of this selfishness or it kills you. You can't come in there and say, well, the big book says we have no monopoly on God, and then declare that unless you do this vital step where you confess to God in the fifth step, that you'll never overcome drinking. And in one way, AA is worse than religion in that regard, because it tries to be everything to everyone. But in truth, at its hardcore basic, at its basic tenements outlined in its books, the 12 and 12 in the big book, Quackaholics Anonymous, it is a hardcore religious cult that condemns you to drunken death if you don't capitulate and do everything they ask. The funny thing about it is their level of dishonesty about it. Like, there are actually, I have encountered some people that are members of this. They're not located, they're located kind of in the rural southern regions of the United States. They may be elsewhere, but for example, there is a group of people, not the more, I guess you would say, mainstream Pentecostal religion, the type that speak in tongues and do those kinds of things. There is one subsection of them that handle snakes. They get that from a line out of, I think it's in Luke and I think it's in Mark. I'm not 100% certain. Don't quote me on that. I don't have the Bible verse in front of us. In front of us. What am I saying? But it involves picking up a snake in demonstration of your faith. Now, these people actually do this. I don't know if all of them are doing it, realistically. I don't know if some people are probably taking a snake and milking all the poison out of it, where the poison hasn't replenished in the snake system, where if you got bit, you wouldn't die anyway. I'm sure that goes on. But if you went to that church and you told them, I don't believe in handling snakes, okay? That's not my thing. I don't believe in doing that. I'm pretty sure they would 100% tell you, well, you can just believe anything you want in here. It doesn't matter what you believe as long as you believe. I'm pretty sure they would tell you, well, this is not the place for you. I'm pretty sure if you went to a Southern Baptist church and you said, well, I want to be a member here, but I don't believe that it's only through the blood of the Lamb that you're saved. I don't believe you got to get saved. I'm pretty sure they wouldn't tell you, well, that's okay. You don't have to believe you're going to get saved to be here. Just believe in something, right? I'm pretty sure on the front end they would tell you that, yeah, this is part of the requirement here. AA does it in a more sneaky kind of way. They do it in a more manipulative type of way. They start out with, oh, we're just a friendly, nice neighborhood group of people that's all helping one another overcome drinking, and we don't care what you believe. You can be whatever you want to be and be in this program. And then they turn around and say, half measures avail us nothing. If you don't conform to the AA way of life, you sign your own death warrant. They tell you if you're not rid of the selfishness, it's going to kill you. They tell you that with us, it's just like that in one part of their book. In fact, I had to jump over to the Orange Papers, and normally the website that keeps it up didn't have it up this week. It's a different particular internet service provider holding it up, putting it up this go around. And that's one reason why I read from the Orange Papers a lot, because sometimes the site disappears altogether, and I'll post a link to this. But it's the part where he says, first, Alcoholics Anonymous is not a religion, then it's better than all of the religions. First, Alcoholics Anonymous is wait a minute. I lost my place. I'm sorry. Bear with me here. I don't want to start all over again with the recording, so I don't have the ability to pause on here, and I think it's this one. First, Bill W. declares that Alcoholics Anonymous was one of only many ways to achieve sobriety. That's something AA defenders say too. I didn't include that in the beginning of the video when I started talking. But yeah, they'll say, we don't have no monopoly in here. You can believe whatever you want. Anything you want goes in here. There's no rules in AA. Lots of different people can achieve sobriety in lots of different ways. Our own literature says that we don't have a monopoly over it. But then they turn around and they do an about face and they tell you, yeah, this is actually the only way. If you don't believe me here, I'm going to grab a few things from the Orange Papers. Similarly, like they say, AA isn't for everyone. But then, of course, it absolutely is. Kind of like if you come to AA and you and you quit drinking, but you say, you know what, this AA shit ain't working for me, and you leave AA, they'll either say you're going to relapse and die and you're a dry drunk, or they will say you're just not a real alcoholic to begin with. But AA promoters declare there are many ways to come to sobriety, and everyone has to find their own way. So let me start out with Bill W.'s lies about this shit. First, Bill W. pretended to be humble, as he declared upon therapy. For the alcoholic himself, we surely have no monopoly, lying sack of shit. But that's in the Big Book 3rd edition. It's in the forwards. And Bill Wilson even pretends to be open-minded, Orange writes, when he declared in the Big Book that AA was not the only way to recover from alcoholism, although he switches the goal to acquire faith. We have no desire to convince anyone that there's only one way by which faith can be acquired. That's in the Big Book, There is a Solution. Again, AA is advertised as a quit drinking program, not an acquire faith program, but they'll switch and trick you on that. And in the beginning, Bill W. writes these kinds of lines. If he thinks he can do the job some other way or prefers some other spiritual approach, encourage him to follow his own conscience. We have no monopoly on God. We merely have an approach that worked with us. But point out that we alcoholics have much in common that you would like, in any case, to be friendly. Let it go with that. He says that in Working with Others on page 95. And then he says, our book is meant to be suggestive only. We realize we only know a little. That's in A Vision for You, page 164. And then he says, perhaps you are not quite in sympathy with the approach we suggest. By no means do we offer it as the last word on the subject. And that's in another part of the Big Book. But somewhere along the way, in the same exact book, on page 43, he says there is virtually no other solution. The AA member, in the 12 Steps and 12 Traditions, he wrote, has to conform to the principles of recovery. They never do say what these fucking principles are. They're always talking about spiritual principles, my life changed when I obeyed spiritual principles, and they never do exactly say what that is. But the AA member has to conform to the principles of recovery. His life actually depends upon obedience to spiritual principles. Where do you get that from? I didn't come here to obey spiritual principles. I came here to stop drinking. If he deviates too far, the penalty is sure and swift. He sickens and dies. There they go again with that die shit. At first he goes along in AA because he must, but later he discovers a way of life that he really wants to live. Moreover, he finds he cannot keep this priceless gift unless he gives it away. Neither he nor anybody else can survive unless he carries the AA message. Well, wait a minute, what the fuck happened to not having the ultimate authority over everybody? What happened to being able to believe whatever you want to? Now I gotta obey these spiritual principles, which really means obey Bill Wilson's weird, bizarre, twisted ideas of morality, which he didn't seem to understand. And then, also, here's another one. If we skip this vital step, we may not overcome drinking. Time after time, newcomers have tried to keep to themselves certain facts about their lives, trying to avoid this humbling experience. They have turned to easier methods. Almost invariably, they got drunk. Well, wait a minute. Before I started reading these lines in the other parts of the book, you were saying we could believe whatever we wanted. You were saying we could do whatever we wanted, right? You didn't have no monopoly over everything. Now you're threatening me with death, And here again in the Big Book. For if an alcoholic failed to perfect and enlarge his spiritual life through work and self-sacrifice for others, he could not survive the certain trials and low spots again. Let me guess, he's going to say you're going to die here in any moment. If he did not work, he would surely drink again. And if he drank, he would surely die. There we go with die again. We should really have our own, that phone will stop ringing in a minute, I promise, in the background. We should really have a drinking game of our own here. Every time he says the word die, take a shot. You'll die of alcoholic poisoning for sure. Alcohol poisoning, not alcoholic. Then faith would be dead indeed. With us, it's just like that. Wait a minute, we went from you can believe whatever you want to with us, it's just like that. But I thought you told me I could believe whatever I wanted to. I thought that you told me that I didn't have to accept your reproach. I thought you said that I could take what I like and leave the rest. Isn't that what they like to tell you when they're doing that double talk? And then, let's go to another line. in the big book, page 44. You may be suffering from an illness which only a spiritual experience will conquer. Wait a minute, only a spiritual experience? How do you know it's only a spiritual experience when you just got through saying that you only know a little? You got through saying you only know a little, you have no monopoly on God, you don't know any of this shit. You just, hey, we accept everybody who wants to stop drinking. That's what this is all about. It's all love and fellowship in here. We don't make you believe anything. Now you're telling me that you're going to die if you don't obey me. And now you're saying that I've got an illness which only a spiritual experience will conquer. Where do you get that from, by the way? Like, did you actually do scientific testing to say, well, these 12 subjects all died and they didn't have a spiritual experience? This guy over here, we saw some weird activity in his brain underneath the microscope, and we can't account for it. It looks like something that came from the fourth dimension of beyond the fourth dimension of time, and it did something to the cells in his brain, and he got cured. So we know. I mean, you said only a spiritual experience will conquer. You don't get to declare only a spiritual experience can conquer a problem when you haven't even established any evidence for a spiritual experience doing anything, or even if it's real or not. But again, Bill W. doesn't know how evidence works, and he doesn't know anything really about how inquiry or anything else that you're going to make as an assertion works. You can't just tell people, hey, you're suffering from a problem and you're not going to be able to get over the fucking problem unless you have a spiritual experience, Like if somebody came to you and said, I watched too many episodes of House of Cards last night and the alarm clock went off at 5 a.m. and I'm running on not much sleep this morning, but I had to see how season 4 ended, and I said, well, you may be suffering from a problem that only a spiritual experience will cure. Don't you think they might say something like, where's your evidence for that? At first, some of us tried to avoid the issue, he writes, about spiritual experiences, I might add. Even though he doesn't have a monopoly on God, remember that. Hoping against hope, we were not true alcoholics. But after a while, we just had to face the fact that we must find a spiritual basis of life, or else. He has to actually put the line in the hyphen, or else. Find a spiritual basis, or else. Does that sound like you can believe whatever you want? Does that sound like you're allowed to kind of have any opinion you like about God? Does that sound like that you could come to AA and say, well, you know what? I don't believe in having a spiritual experience. I believe that through reading something that's in line kind of with Taoist philosophy of take life as it comes, or the way that they do in Japan, where they're kind of Buddhist for their funerals and Shinto for their weddings, that kind of works for me. I don't need this spiritual experience. Do you think saying to someone, you have to do it my way or else, do you think they're going to tolerate that? And of course, Bill Wilson wrote that you had to do all 12 steps all the time or you're going to sign your own death warrant. Let's read this word for word, or shall we not? Unless each AA member follows to the best of his ability or suggested my ass. 12 steps to recovery, he almost certainly signs his own death warrant. Wait a minute. Unless you follow my suggested path of recovery, you're going to sign your own death warrant. Now, that would be like, and here again, they say that you can believe whatever you want in AA, right? You can do it your way. It's your program. It's up to you. There's no rules in AA. But this is the part in every fucking meeting I ever attended where one of these people has to say, well, they told me the program was only suggestions when I got here. You know that? They told me it was only suggestions. But they said if you jump out of an airplane, that thing that says pull the parachute, that's a suggestion. And everybody laughs like they've never heard that a million motherfucking times before. Well, wait a minute. That's not a suggestion. It's not. Like if I told you, if I put some kid in the car with me that's just got a learner's permit, and I said, in order to make the thing go, you got to hit the gas pedal. In order to make the thing stop, you got to hit the brake pedal. In order to steer it where you like, you got to use the steering wheel. By the way, if you don't do those things, we could be in a wreck and all killed. Doesn't sound like I'm suggesting to the kid, maybe you should use the steering wheel. Maybe you should use the brakes. Maybe you shouldn't. I don't know. Just drive on blind faith alone and see how it works. But by the way, my instructions on how to drive a car, they're all suggestions. This is too mutually exclusive things that cannot possibly both add up and be true. You can't tell people that you can do whatever you want to do and then just tell you you're going to die. But his drunkenness, he adds, a disillusion are not penalties inflicted by people in authority. Oh, they're not. They result from his personal disobedience to spiritual principles. Wait a minute. I'm just going to read that again. The whole thing from the top. Unless each AA member follows to the best of his ability our suggested 12 steps to recovery, he almost certainly signs his own death warrant. His drunkenness and disillusion are not penalties inflicted by people in authority. They result from his personal disobedience to spiritual principles. He's telling you right there, you got to do what he tells you to do all the time. You're going to die, and if you do die, it's all your fault. You're disobedient. I mean, but AA defenders will swear to me that there's no rules in AA. You can believe whatever you like in AA. The table of contents in the same book declares absence of coercion works because unless each AA follows suggested steps to recovery, he signs his own death warrant. Let me read that again. Absence of coercion, that means we're not going to make you do anything. What a fucking lie. Works because unless each AA follows suggested steps to recovery, he signs his own death warrant. Now that's like me saying, I'm not forcing you to do this, right? I'm not forcing you to do anything. I'm not going to force you to do nothing. But if you don't do it, I'm going to kill you. That's exactly what this sounds like. And people still insist that this is not a cult. This is not a religion with rules. Why? We let everybody come in here. Anybody do whatever they want, right? You know, just like the parachute. If you fall out of a plane, you might ought to pull the parachute. It's just a suggestion, but you're going to die. You know, and they're so smarmy about the whole entire fucking thing. You know, they told me when I got here that my family said those people were brainwashing me. I said, my brain needs washing. That's not the own that you think it is. That's an admission that you're a fucking moron who's going to let a religious cult tell you what to do because you think that you can't quit drinking on your own. I mean, that's not something to brag about, you know? Likewise, the AA First Tradition bill says AA must continue to live, and most of us will surely die. There we go again. Surely die. It's always die with Bill W. You know, you got to do this or you're going to die. Well, you know, Bill W. died. He died begging for booze, so this death threat ain't working so well, is it? And the big book also says he was insisting he had found the only cure. That was in the third edition on page 257. They had found the only remedy, page 259. Oh, and let's read a little tidbit here from some pro-AA literature from the Hazelden Foundation. It declares, none of us in Alcoholics Anonymous is normal. Our abnormality compares us to go to AA. We all go because we need to, because the alternative is drastic, either AA or death. Wait a minute, here we go with the death die thing again. Wait a minute, it's either AA or death, but it's a suggested program. You can do whatever you want, you can believe whatever you like. You don't even have to do the steps to do AA, right? But you can either do it or die. If I put a gun to your head and said, you got to do everything I tell you to do, or I'm going to kill you, does that sound like I'm giving you a choice? Or does it sound like I'm using an ugly, horrible, sadistic method of coercion to force you to do things you don't want to do? And here's another one from my AA promoter. His name is Al J. Mooney. Well, it sounds like a cartoon character, doesn't it? One way or another, Alcoholics Anonymous, or similar 12-step program, is an integral part of almost all successful recoveries from alcohol and drug abuse. Now, you see that's a fucking lie, but it's a fucking lie that's going to cost a lot of people their ability to think and judge critically, because you just got through saying almost all successful recoveries from alcohol and drug abuse, it's the 12 steps. You know, almost all of them, if they're successful, it's the 12 steps. You're a goddamn liar for saying that shit, but notice the sly, subtle way they're brainwashing you with that bit. In fact, it's widely believed that not including a 12-step program in a treatment plan will put a recovering addict on the road to death. Man, they do love death and die. Please do not take my joke earlier seriously. Don't take a shot every time you hear the word death and die in AA. In AA literature too, you'll really die. There was a guy on here who had a channel up for a while. He was calling himself American Jesus, but he said he went to a group. I always crack up when I hear this, but he said when he got to the group and he walked inside, they had a sign on the door and it said, "Don't die." Don't die. This is a hopeful life beyond your wildest dreams. What's my life beyond my wildest dreams in AA? Don't die. The authors are using a propaganda trick of everybody's doing it and everybody knows with this line, Orange Paper's right. Just like everybody knows that the world is flat. Just like everybody knows that AA works great. Now, of course, all these AA and NA recruiters and promoters are ignoring the simple fact that the 12-step program doesn't work at all. It just raises the death rate. And then it goes on for some other things on here. But I think, oh shit, I've done talk for a half hour. I'm going to wrap up with a subscriber comment. And then hopefully we'll see you guys next week, hopefully. And this is a subscriber who writes, when I first started the cult, there was much I did not understand. I was a little bit embarrassed about this ignorance. So I did not openly question that which made no sense to me. Most thinking people tend to look inwards at their own lack of knowledge when they meet it face to face. Actually, you're right. When I hear about something in the news or in a magazine article or on the television or whatever, and I don't know anything about it, and there's a part of me that does. I want to look inward. I want to say, let me look this up. Let me learn more, right? The opposite, though, can tend to be true with AA people. Arrogant know-it-alls tend to broadcast their so-called understanding. Boy, if that is the truth. I've seen so many AA old-timers and gurus talk like they were experts on subjects that it was very obvious they didn't know nothing about, According to cult gurus, my lack of knowledge was either low self-esteem, a term I kept hearing at cult meetings and one that I began to despise, or lack of power. I began to believe the guru's diagnosis and was also encouraged to think that way by the podium big shots, I like that. But the indirect dressing downs I received were always accompanied by a red flag. You can remain in ignorance and therefore drink until you die, or you can do the program, right? But you can believe whatever you want. Put it in such a dramatic way, I bought this and started to think that my ignorance would be erased once I completed step 12. Or as some carny cultist pitched, even before you're halfway through, you're going to be amazed. At an inner city walk-in, walk-out 2-hour meeting where I went through a brief period showing the most profound thing I can say is I don't know. The statement alone caused certain members to approach me after the meeting. They were always told that those who did, they were always the ones who apparently wanted to act like they knew. Invariably, this lot shared typical rags to riches stories. Remarkably, their considerable wealth and associated glamorous lifestyles had just fallen into their laps after working the program like the first 100. Most of these people are lying. They're not successful or wealthy. I even had some woman from my first home group say to me, "It'll all come to you." All in this case meaning everything. This was her definition of sobriety recovery, getting everything you wanted. The truth is, she was divorced 3 times, and each time took her former financially successful husbands to the proverbial cleaners, as well as some other things. I don't know how relevant this comment is, but the point I'm trying to make is I'm willing to admit that I didn't understand what was going on at the cult. Aside from the noticeable fact that people who were no longer drinking themselves to insensibility were... Aside from the noticeable fact that people were no longer drinking themselves to insensibility, however, I, like many others, was targeted by cult nutters. Unfortunately, I remained far too long and developed my own types of arrogant coping skills, which from memory frequently changed contingent on my mood or what cult members I was mixing with at the time. AA makes a big deal about how stable and unchanged his program and recovered way of life is. But it seems no 2 members are on the same page about anything. They just make up new face-saving dialogue as time goes by. Absolutely sums it up 100%. They want to be all things to everybody. They want to say that anybody can do this program and you can do it your way, and then they want to threaten you with death when it doesn't. See, They want two mutually exclusive things to be true at the same time simultaneously. First, they want to tell you that you can do whatever you like, believe whatever you like, but when it's convenient for them, when it's convenient for them to defend the cult religion, but then they can also turn around and say, no, 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 no. You got to do it like I say do it or you're going to die. See, they want both things at once. What was it Sylvia Plath said about being a neurotic wanting two mutually exclusive things at once? Anyway, I hope you got something out of that, and I hope to see you guys next week with another video. Until next time.